Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the Update 2.2 dev server, and it's time to have a look at the naval vehicles which will be coming out in Update 2.2. There's a few large vessels and also one very interesting one, at least in my opinion, and the first one is this German battle cruiser that you see right here. This is the HMS Wondertan. It is from 1914 and it follows the ideas that we've had so much before in the last updates when it comes to the battleships. Very much, First World War or even pre-First World War ideas, and this one is very similar. The first thing to understand is the major armament on this is 4 dual sets of 283mm. They are set up in a way so you can bring them all onto a broadside, which should be really nice. That's backed up by 10 150mm cannons and then 16 88mm, which are all over the place. It also has 2 792 somewhere, but well, I can't find them, and with such a large ship that this is, I'm sure somebody will spot them eventually. One thing that the battlecruisers have is a little bit less armor compared to their battleship counterparts, even if they have similar guns, and that is no different for the Wondertan. The Wondertan has a 250mm very thin belt on the machine. It also has a 225mm belt above that, and then 200mm above. Then of course the coal bunkers, which have been modeled in recently to a lot of the machines that act as a little bit of extra armor, and on top of that a 30mm layer which is on the outside. Then you also have a little bit of armor on the front and back, which protect the front and the back of the ship. And then also you have a little bit of armor on the turrets as well, 230 on the front of them with 180 on the side. The bridge is obviously well armored, 300mm around it. Whether that will stop battleships annihilating you, at least you know it is there. It also has little areas or layers of armor on the inside of it, meaning that your shells, once they enter, may not splash where you want them to because of the fact that all of this is here. Now the internal components show a very similar stories in terms of survivability. This thing will have a ton of survivability, mainly down to the fact that a lot of these coal bunkers, as you can see, are here, which will cause a lot of armor to be, well, existing to cover the engines. There's also the ammunition racks of the front gun and also the back gun over here, so maybe you can target them to watch this thing go pop. And also it has 2 sets of smoke funnels, so taking out one will mean this thing will still be able to move around the place. It can get up to 51 kilometers an hour, but it definitely isn't very fast compared to a few of the other ships. But compared to the battle cruisers, the battleships, sorry, that to me is quite speedy. The actual guns themselves, as I said, they're already on some of the German battleships which were added last update, and it has access to HE, which pens 143, 123, 71 respectively, and also a little bit of APC as well, which will penetrate pretty much anything you hit. 469, 377, 161 on that APC with HE filler. It also gets access to torpedoes, but these torpedoes right now have a travel distance of 1.2 kilometers. Now I'm guessing that's wrong, maybe it'll be changed, but if these things come in with 1.2 kilometers travel distance, that would be hilarious. So yeah, that is definitely something to watch out for. You can see the torpedo tubes sat down here in stationary positions, and they come out of course at the side, which you can't see, but they will create a cross section if you decide to fire them in to the backs. It also has a torpedo tube at the back, so if anything is following you, you can give it a good rinse, and then there's one in the front as well, if you are able, to get behind an enemy. But yeah, 1.2 kilometers, it's going to be kind of useless. The next vehicle that is on offer is for the Soviets, and this is the MPK PR12412. This is a very modern machine, probably from the 80s, and it's known as a motor torpedo gunboat. I would say more as like a corvette thing, but I suppose it is more of just a modernized PT boat. It has access to some really cool weaponry though, in the form of a 76mm turret on the front, a 30mm automatic cannon on the back, and also a set of 4 torpedoes backing that up. It also has what's known as a mortar. This is rocket launchers basically, but you can, if you target an enemy, it will set the distance properly, and as long as it's in range of the rockets themselves, it will actually hit them. The other thing to also mention is it does have access to iglas on the back. You can see them right here, but unfortunately they're not usable right now. According to BVVD on the Russian dev stream, they will be available in the future, but at least right now they don't seem to be working. So looking at the modifications for this, once again, it has a universal belt for the 30mm, which is generally HE. This means that this will be used for anti-air duty, and also the 76 has access to a HE and a HE-VT shell. So it'll be able to do a ton of damage against stuff that doesn't have any armor, but if you run into a bunch of armor, then you might have a few issues with this fast round 76. It only pens 10mm, so therefore you won't be able to do a ton of damage to stuff which has more armor than that. One thing to also mention is the 30mm. When it comes to the sound of it, it doesn't seem to be working too well, so that is a bit of an issue. But you can see the 76 here has a really nice flash on it when it actually works, and then there you go. And then when it comes to the 30 at the back, it is actually trained to the secondary guns, so you can be able to, you know, use them independently. But this is what it looks like, and as I said, don't worry about the sound. The sound will get fixed. It also overheats incredibly quick, so you do have to be a little bit careful of that when you're firing it, to make sure to keep it, you know, going if you want it for extended periods of time. It is definitely something that will be incredibly useful though, especially taking out planes if you're able to aim it correctly, unlike me. But you can see that this is, I believe, the same gun that is on the carrier for the Soviets in the game. And having access to torpedoes is always nice, and having access to the rockets on the front is also incredibly nice to have, even though I'm pretty sure in this scenario they might fire over. So let's try and hit this guy. You can see that it fires them straight, and it fires them at the target where the thing is, and it does automatically range, but remember they do have a range on them, so you won't always be able to hit a target if it is far away enough. You can see there it would have hit, but hey ho, it is how it is. So yeah, a pretty cool little machine compared to the massive behemoths that have been added recently to the game. It's nice to see something be added to the coastal fleet. The coastal fleet. It's right here at the end of the tree after the Project 206, and if you want to know where the Wondertan is, it is going to be after the Graf Spee in the Blue Water Fleet for the Germans. The next vehicle is the HMS Invincible, and the HMS Invincible follows the same ideas as the Wondertan, since the Wondertan was designed to counter the HMS Invincible, which was the first real type of its class. The HMS Invincible has access to 4 dual 305mm, and once again you can bring all of these onto bear as you want, and also it has access to a 152mm belt, obviously the coal bunkers below it, and 177mm which are controlling which are defending the ammo elevators. It also has a ton of armor on the turrets, 177.8mm on the front of the turrets and also on the sides and the back, so you don't lose any armor by turning the turrets, which is kind of nice. You also have a little bit of armor on either side to try and protect the crew which is around here. Then of course the bridge, which is incredibly tiny on this machine, 254mm, which will at least protect the Admiral and some other of his men. You also have 152mm here because of the fact that it is a secondary post where you can command from. Then, as a secondary set of guns, it has 12 4-inch guns, which are set up around the machine, and one 76mm and one 3-pounder Hotchkiss cannon. So just like the German machine, this one doesn't have too much in terms of AA armament, but it does pack a hell of a punch when it comes to the ability to annihilate other machines. With the 305mm, you do get access to a HE shell, the APC, and also the SAP. Obviously, the APC nearly pens 500 at 476, 383, 163mm respectively, with a bit of a HE filler, and then the CPC pens 260, 223, 99 respectively as well. The 102mm gun as well does have an SAP round, so it's not just a HE round, which is nice for it, meaning that you will be able to do some penetrating damage to a bunch of machines. The X-ray as well shows that there's coal bunkers all over the engines, once again giving it additional protection, and 3 sets of smoke funnels, meaning that it's going to be very hard to stop this thing in the water while it is moving about. It also does get access to 405mm torpedoes, but once again the travel distance for these is only 5.49 kilometers. The torpedoes for these high-ranking vehicles is not great, and that's basically because of the age of them and the torpedo technology that was around at the time. You can see these beautifully well-modeled engines at the bottom here. You can also see these beautifully well-modeled ships. They're easily the nicest models when it comes to the game in general, and I'm very happy to see them just because of that fact. The next and last ship which is going to be here for this update is the Polar. Now, the Polar is a premium ship for the Italians. It is a Zara class machine, it is a Zara class machine. It is the sister ship of the Zara which you have in the tech tree, and it has exactly the same armament. So it has 4 dual mounted 203mm, 6 dual mounted 100mm, 4 dual mounted 37mm, and 4 13.2mm dual sets of Breda Model 31s. It also has a decent bit of armor on it, the 150mm belt, which also has access to 100mm below it and 30mm above it, and a ton of ammunition for its guns, the 203mm, so you have to be a little bit careful with them. The engines are sat in the center, these big hunks right here, and along with all of the independent smoke funnels is really nicely modeled once again for this machine. And I suppose if you want to grind out Italy when it comes to the Blue Water fleet, you can pick up the Polar so you can go through with it. If you want to see any of the other characteristics, you can check the Zara that is on the live server right now, and the HMS Invincible is sat here in the tech tree. If you want to have a look at what the new guns look like, we'll test it out with the Wondertan just to show you what the new looks like, the visual effects on the guns, which look really nice. Basically, you know how in the last update what they did is they updated the models of the visual effects for the planes. Well, they basically did the same thing when it came to naval forces and also ground forces as well. So I'm very happy that they did that. I'm very happy that we have these extra graphical effects. It makes everything look nicer. You can already see it with the smaller guns there. Everything looks absolutely beautiful. And when it comes to the main guns as well, they also look absolutely stunning. So here's also an example of bringing everything on a broadside, and this is what the guns look like when fired. As you can see, absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning, and we also set off the ammunition of that ship over there, sending it to the bottom of the sea. So yeah, it's definitely one of the nicest things when it comes to these last few updates. The graphics that have been changed are absolutely wonderful, and I can't wait to see what they do next year when it comes to improving them once again. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez B. Young, and also Hans Vergellen, Sebastian Mizon, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.